Hello and welcome to another Christmas movie review. I am going to review A Christmas Carol today. Now there have been many versions of this story. Obviously the one I'm reviewing is the Jim Carrey, Robert Zemeckis one. One of my favourite, probably actually my favourite version of this Charles Dickens story. I absolutely love this film. I think the animation is fantastic. I think Robert Zemeckis took the tools that he'd kind of worked with in Polar Express and Beowulf, and he just improved on them. He kept on improving on them. I mean, Beowulf was an improvement on Polar Express, I think, in the animation department, and this, I feel, is really the culmination of those two projects. It's very realistic, I think. I've gone for like some photorealism. I think the production design on it, when we see the streets, those kind of that old London streets, it just looks stunning. The world that is created is beautiful. And when we first zip through the streets at the beginning, I think that helps. It opens up this world. It shows this world to us, gives us real atmosphere, kind of draws us into that Charles Dickens world, that Dickensian kind of feel. Now, my only flaw really with the film, I guess, is that Zemeckis has a tendency to do that too much with the camera. He's kind of zipping in and out of streets, and he does a lot of these chase scenes for the sake of chase scenes. But what they're actually for the sake of is the 3D. Now, this was released in 3D showings, and I do feel that a lot of the action, the big kind of set pieces, are simply there for the 3D. They don't advance the story or develop the character in any way. They're just there to look pretty. Because of that realism that is created, the kind of photorealism stuff, there are a couple of scenes where characters do things that are, well, out of the realm of possibility for the human body. And that kind of takes away from that realism, I would say. So there's the dance between Fezziwig and his wife, and then she does this kind of spin, this pirouette where she kind of ends up flying up in the air. And that feels like something out of Shrek, not out of this film. It doesn't feel like it belongs in this film. It's amusing, it's charming, but it's a bit of a clash in tone. But yeah, as for criticisms, that's pretty much all I have, because the rest of the film is just stunning. It's beautifully crafted and wonderfully directed by Zemeckis. The characters are so well drawn out. Like, you look at Scrooge, everything Scrooge does in this, all his little actions, his little tics, they tell you something about his character. The opening sequence in which he is really reluctant to give over these coins to the man who has basically sorted the corpse for his best friend who has just died. He's a miser, an absolute miser, and the performance capture, obviously Jim Carrey has performed in this. He's actually acted, and the computer has taken that performance and turned it into animation. So you can see that. You can see the performance work that has gone into it, and it's just, yeah, it's all just beautiful. Like I say, everything that Scrooge does reveals something about who he is. I love how traditional this film is. It doesn't shy away from including aspects about God, about faith, about the true meaning of Christmas. And there's one particular point when the Ghost of Christmas Present, played brilliantly by Carey Elwes, by the way. I've never really rated him as an actor, but I guess he, you know, when you can't see his face on screen, he's got a good voice. He's doing a really good job with this character. Quite sinister in many ways. You know, he's a very jolly character, yet there's kind of sinister undertone to everything he's doing, but because of what he's showing Scrooge, because of where he's taking Scrooge. And there's a moment where Scrooge accuses him, basically. He essentially accuses him in the way that many people today accuse God. You know, if God's there, why doesn't he stop things from happening? Why don't he stop disasters and people from being hurt? Why don't he stop the evil that people do? To which the Ghost of Christmas Present's response is, well, actually, why don't we do it? Why doesn't humanity do it? Why doesn't Scrooge do it? You know, Scrooge has got the money, he's got the resources to help, but he doesn't. He turns the tables around. And I love that element of the film. You know, obviously being a person of faith, that really speaks to me. But I'm happy that they've kept that in there. Adding to that sense of traditionalism, we've got a load of Christmas carols, like really traditional old-style Christmas carols. There's a great rendition of a song, I can't remember the name of it, but Andre Bocelli, I don't know if I've pronounced his name right, I'm not really really that big on opera. I can't tell you that, I know who this guy really is. But in the credits, he's named, and it's a beautiful rendition of this Christmas Carol that really touches me every time I hear it, every time I watch this film. There's probably some scary moments in it for kids. There's some real... the opening scene, like I said, when Scrooge goes to visit Marley's body. Obviously not visiting Marley, but he goes to look at the body, and... literally, practically the opening shot of the film, other than the book, once we actually get into the film, the opening shot is essentially a dead body. It's a corpse just lying there. It's a pretty creepy image. It's very cold. And then we get, again, with the Ghost of Christmas Present, we have these kids under his cloak that he refers to as ignorance and want. And they're quite spooky, and the way they turn into these adults that kind of mess with Scrooge, it's like something out of a horror film. So yeah, this is definitely not one for young kids. It spooks me a little bit. So, but then again, I am a bit soft, so... But yeah, I wouldn't say it's for young kids. So very dark film, very dark themes in it, but ultimately one of hope, as all of these renditions of Scrooge are. Seeing this man who is an absolute miser just turn and his heart soften and he becomes this wonderful human being, it gets me every time. And one of the things with a retelling of A Christmas Carol is, and I've said this before, you hear a story so many times, it can just make it feel... numb. You don't really feel anything when you're watching it, but with this I do. There are many times throughout where I do actually get quite emotional. The stuff with Tiny Tim, I see that in some other versions and it's just like, it's a bit corny in it, but with this it does actually raise some real emotional response from me, particularly when we see his dad. He's played by Carey Oldman, and you can see Carey Oldman in the animation. They've clearly put his face in there. But you can see the performance and just the way that the death of Tiny Tim touches his father. It's just, it really gets to me. So, excellent job, beautiful animation, wonderful film all round. Save for those minor criticisms, as I said, I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5. For me personally, and I know many people prefer the Alistair Sim version, but for me this is the best version of A Christmas Carol. I absolutely love it. So yeah, what about you? Have you seen this film, and how do you think it stacks up against other versions of the retellings of Charles Dickens' story? Comment below, let me know, and until next time, thanks for watching. Hello and welcome to